We're going to talk a little bit about location intelligence and predictive analytics. And so our agenda is going to be a little bit of a presentation overview, short overview about our company, and then a bit around predictive and location. We're going to feature a use case of one of our customers that happens to be a European-based customer. I'll give you a little bit of an overview of that, and then in general how they're using our solution to help them run their business. And then Tim's going to actually do a demo off of our server and show you the live software platform and take you through some examples in the use case of how this particular retailer is using our solution around some of how they're doing their marketing and predictive stuff. Right. So that's our agenda. The time slot is an hour. We're going to try to not do an hour because then you're running to your next class, and there's a lot of kids in the hallway, and kids get their books knocked out of their hands, and then it all goes bad from there, and then a fight breaks out. And so we're going to try to target the stop around 50 minutes or so, but we're also going to leave 10 plus minutes for Q&A, and we'll stay and answer questions as long as you stay here. But formally, we'll try to finish things up around 45-50 minute mark. So if people want to leave early and avoid the crush of people in the cafeteria, you can do that. Okay, right. So blank slide. Don't know why that got there in the last 25 minutes, but it did. But you know what? We worked through that stuff, right? So I had nothing to say on that slide. So a little bit about our company. Galigeo started in 2001, and it's gone through a couple different formulations to bring us to where we are now as a location. We use the expression location intelligence. There are others that are in and around the space that are using the word location analytics. If you're familiar with either one, use them interchangeably. It's kind of like the way CRM started from Salesforce automation and call center optimization and moved into CRM over a 15-year period, if you're old enough to remember those things, okay? We have offices in New York, Paris, and Brussels. We have business partnerships with some of the key folks in the market, particularly around the BI and the operational reporting environment. So SAP Business Objects, IBM Cognos are two of our key partners. Esri, which is the GIS provider, big 800-pound gorilla here in the U.S., is a strategic partner of ours and has been for a long time. We also have a very important relationship with Nokia and Navtech and their mapping capabilities, and Microsoft as well. We'll sort of pre-announce in this room. There's a release that's going out today that talks about the fact that we have a emerging relationship with MicroStrategy, and I'll talk about our connectors in a minute, and that's where that comes back in. And similarly with one of the leading cloud-based Salesforce CRM platforms, Salesforce.com. Right? So they're not up there right now because they're not as formal or strategic the relationship as we have with these folks. Okay, clients, you can quickly read them. We have clients and customers in a number of different industries, and so I think one of the nice beneficial things about us as a company, without selling too much in this presentation, is that we are not an industry focused, and we have some very worthy competitors that are industry focused. And so if you're in the insurance industry, you probably recognize a company's name or two that are really focused on insurance, right? But we do work with insurance companies, right? And there's people who are directly involved in just retail, right, or healthcare. But we can work across those, and so it's not so much that we're opportunistic, but there's 5 or 6 key commercial industry segments that we have customers and use cases in, and we continue to go after those types of things. Basically speaking, our value proposition is that we deliver the wear factor. And so in the enterprise environment, whether you're a middle-sized enterprise or a very large-scale global Fortune 50 type of a company, you have one or more sets of data. And our value proposition to bring wear factor is that we will connect to or integrate to your enterprise data sets. And I'm saying that with a plural because we can do one or more data sets, okay, when you look at our partnerships. So we're going to do that through an enterprise API, which is the commonly expressed word, but we call it a connector. So we have connectors to multiple different types of databases, right? We also work with, so that's a BI analytics environment. We also work with operational data. We're starting to work on a relationship with IBM's big data team around big data and streaming data, large volumes of streaming data through a connector API into our platform, right? With that, with all those different types of data, we're bringing those on one side with spatial, right? GIS, geospatial, spatial intelligence tool sets, and bringing them together, essentially abstracting them up into our platform. And then with that, we apply a set of robust data visualization tools. So you can have enriched data optimization, visualization inside of our platform, more than you'd get from either of the other two sides. And then from that, now you're able to start doing some things that matter to your business. And my common phrase is that our desire is to help businesses improve their business outcomes. So if location and visualization allows you to improve the outcome, you can get there better, faster, smarter, right? And then turn around and put that into play in the marketplace. That's what we're hoping to do for our customers, right? So for us, what is location intelligence? Maybe just a little bit of context setting, because terms of nomenclature, terms of art are important. Words are important. So we use location intelligence, right? From a business user perspective, right? But by the way, if you're scrambling to take notes or draw pictures, you don't have to. If you give us a business card before you leave, we'll be happy to get you the presentation. Okay, purely up to you, right? If you want to remain anonymous, then scribble and draw Venn diagrams. But again, I'm just saying that, right? Because I see some people scribbling, right? And I'm gonna, don't go off the slide. I won't go off the slide till you're done, and then 20 minutes later. But here's the thing: from a business perspective, the way I sort of condense it down into make it simple, and not meaning to make it simplistic, right? Is there's the business intelligence or operational environment, right? So that's one of the circles, and then there's the geospatial analysis environment. That's the other circle, and then there's the data visualization. And there are people in the marketplace who do things really, really well, and they should get kudos. So there's outstanding BI environments and outstanding analytics database companies. And you've seen some of the names, and we could throw out more names, right? So whether it's a MicroStrategies or somebody else. Now, some of what they're starting to do, ClickTech, Tableau, and others, right, from the sort of the new generation, they're bringing rich data visualization into their BI, and you're able to do some really interesting things with that, right? So that's sort of one tangent. On the other side, you have BI people who are either trying to figure out how to get their data into a GIS environment, right, and do some things with GIS and spatial stuff, and that's no easy task, or it hasn't been, right? But what they're really trying to do is combine those two, right? And then every once in a while, you get a really good leading vendor around the GIS who's bringing some rich data visualization widgets and tools into their platform, and so that's sort of like the third leg. What we're doing is we're sitting in the middle, right? It's not so much that we want to try to be all things to all people, but we're sitting in the middle because the way we architected our product from the start was to be able to support all three things, rather than coming at it from one side or the other, right? So that's what we really are trying to do, and we've coined that as location intelligence. It sits in the middle, okay? So we marry spatial and data and visualization into one application or one solution set, right? And then for the IT folks, what we're really talking about is being in that upper right-hand quadrant. So we're taking your aggregated data, and we're taking your spatial stuff, and we're putting them together, right? And not so much that we're making canonicals of the two aggregated, but we're giving them both in the same environment so you can operate with them, okay? So that's what we're talking about. So what does it mean? A little bit of a primer. I think a lot of people in here are probably predictive analytics oriented people, but just as a little bit of a ground set. What does it mean for analytics to be predictive? Well, you're looking at historical events, you're looking at transactions, you're looking at both structured and unstructured data. You're applying a whole series of different multiple statistical techniques if you're really advancing yourself, right? So it could be simple regression, but it could be logit. It could be something else that you're trying to do. You could be doing clustering, right? You could be doing machine learning to mine, interrogate your data, and then try to determine what's your next best model that you want to run off of that, right? What you're really trying to accomplish, when I came at it from the business side as a marketer, right, was I would let the folks tell me what the best model was, but I would tell them what I needed to try to accomplish in the marketplace with the outcomes from their work, because that's where the rubber hit the road, right? So what's the insights I can get from simulations or the models, the optimization? And then is it reusable? Is it a one-time thing and I could actually do something with it, or is it reusable? And I'm all about trying to get reusability or patternizing things. So I might be able to take 60% of that model and use it somewhere else and extend it out. So that's really what we're trying to work with our customers around. If they're in that predictive analytics mode, and these are the types of things we're doing, then we think we can help them, right? Because they're starting to advance themselves. And where they end up getting is they get to a point where they can't do much more, right? But they're able to do basic things. So, the common expressions of, what can I do with predictive? Well, I can assess a patient's risk around disease conditions, right? I can determine the likelihood of a customer buying something, right? I can improve the marketing campaign and the lift factor of the marketing campaign. I can get the the response I want to do. I know the behavior triggers, and I know how to get people to do something I want them to do, change their behavior or reinforce their behavior. So my models are doing those things, right? I can determine whether somebody's more or less likely to default. And there's more and more things that you can do with that stuff. What I know from my layman side of analytics is, and predictive analytics is, what I'm really trying to do is I'm trying to figure out, what are the variables that are influencing my model, and can I exert something against that variable, right? That influence, right? To do something different in the marketplace. There were times when I got stymied because I couldn't see it, right? Somebody would say, well, you've got 75,000 people that are in this customer segment that have this persona, right, that have these types of demographic elements to them. We know what the most meaningful variables are, but I'm not sure I can really tell you where in the zip code set they reside, or how close they are, or how far away they are to your store location, right? Or how likely they are to travel from where they are to where your store is, or where you may want to put your store. It was hard to manipulate that data conceptually. So where actually starts being something we care about, right? So we're trying to take predictive and extend it now. The other thing that's really driving the market right now, and that we're stepping up to work with, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, is around big data. So, from my perspective, again, more as a layman than a modeler, big data is only going to help me improve what I'm going to be able to do with predictive, right? So, oversimplifying it again, right, for one slide, but what we're going to work with our customers on who are going to be challenged by big data, right, and want to integrate location intelligence into a big data environment is we're going to help them with understanding where are the places that we can connect to directly, right, through our connector, our APIs, right, and does it make sense to do that, or do we want to go through a more standardized map-reduced type of a process, right, and then identify the subsets of data that they want to get to for the modeling work that they want to do. And how do we want to connect to that so we can instantiate that inside of our platform? And do we need to go back to the larger data scale sets sometimes, right? And we've already figured out what our connection architecture is going to be. And then once I'm in there, are there tools that they're going to use that are going to refine it for their modeling purposes? And then what outputs are they going to create? Because the consuming results is where the modelers and I play. So again, so if I'm going to put on my old marketing hat, we're going to hash through this data, and we're going to start creating ways to visualize not just the predictive outcome, but just elements of the data itself. So I'm going to mash up some dashboards. I'm going to have some models, right? I'm going to want to update those models. I might decide I want to start bringing in streaming stuff that is unstructured data, text-based data. How am I going to do that? And then how am I going to update my models on the fly? And then when I visualize that, if I visualize that, is it going to allow me to be able to see things that I haven't seen before, right? And our basic proposition is, in most cases, when you visualize it, when you've been able to take big data sets, streaming data sets, and reduce it down through the normalized process, and then you model it and map it, you'll be able to see some things that you likely haven't seen before, right? With the work that we're going to do with IBM around managing large flows of streaming data, what we'll get to sometime in the future, it's not a product we have today, is being able to then really update that stuff on the fly, right, in the location intelligence environment, so you can see how rapidly things are changing as you're adding large volumes of streaming data, again, whether it's structured or unstructured data. So, kind of simplify, when you put it back all together, we think that from a sort of standard predictive perspective, if you harness the power of large-scale data sets, the cloud, computational capability, and you play in with the big data side of things, because you're getting low-cost computational power, right? Whether it's an Amazon or somebody else. And you now add in what we think is a relatively low-cost entry point, bringing location intelligence, the mapping elements, the where factor, right? From multiple data sets, real-time connections, right? Interrogate the data, make updates on the fly, bring in a bunch of different geospatial layers. You're actually going to get a much more powerful set of outcomes, right, that you can take action on, right? So your models will always be your models. Our platform doesn't, or nobody else's location intelligence platform will improve your model. It won't tell you which way you want to create your model, right? It's not going to tell you that logit is better than regression, or something even more advanced than that is better than the next thing. But when you've created those outputs from your model, now you can bring that information into our platform, into a location intelligence platform generically, right? And you should be able to do things with that, right? interrogate it, intuitively come out with some decision outputs from that process, okay? We think if you do that, you're really sort of shortening the entire loop that you're going through, right? From the, what am I gonna try to accomplish in a market or learn, to, I've actually synthesized, learned it, I can take some steps, some outcomes to that, and then go back and reapply what I've learned, because I'm able to stream things back in again and repeat that kind of a process, right? So, you know, some people say, well, you know, how important is the where factor? I grew up with stuff on what would be your left, my right, for I'm directionally challenged, right? So, you know, I got out of college way back in the early 80s, and I progressed through different marketing roles in the 80s and early 90s. And really at the end of my sort of operational career, I had reports that looked like the stuff on the left. And I was supposed to figure out how to deploy, you know, millions of dollars marketing budgets into the market to support 150 salespeople and a $150 million P&L with that kind of stuff, right? And that was really kind of hard, right? This is what we can give you now on the right, right? I don't know that it gives you a better answer, but I think it can. I think it can give you different answers, but I think it can clearly, from my experience, it would give me answers faster. And operational cycle times are really critical things. So, you know, I don't know about you guys, but I think I would rather have the outputs, you know, on the right, as well as getting the outputs on the left than just the outputs on the left, right? So visually, that's what location intelligence can look like, okay? So we're gonna talk a little bit about our customer in Europe. By agreement, we can't name them, but if you're familiar with very European-based, very large global retailers that have 4 or 5 different types of store formats, like hypermarkets and convenience and standard grocery. And if I keep naming, you'll sort of narrow it down to 2 or 3 of those types of folks. They're one of those, right? If you know the European global retailers, right? They've got 15,000 stores, the 4 different formats there. They're in 33 countries, 475,000 employees. You know, 107 billion euro is their turnover, is their revenue, okay? What they really wanted to basically do is integrate GIS and their BI data sets and some operational stuff into a platform to do some of the things that I've talked about, right, and won't go into. And so what you're seeing here on the screen is a little bit of what their objectives. They wanted to accomplish a number of things. So if you're from the retail industry, you know what retail trade analysis, site selection is about, or market opportunity analysis and site selection. You can go by different names. So they wanted to do RTA, market analysis stuff, right? And then they wanted to do that for news sites, and they wanted to do that for determining the type of format they wanted to put in a market. They also wanted to do competitive analysis, right? They wanted to monitor store performance. So once they decided to put a store in, they wanted to monitor performance against what the forecast was for that store. Then they wanted to monitor all stores on a month-over-month, quarter-over-quarter, year-over-year basis, all right? And then they wanted to basically drive revenue through marketing activities. Okay, so those are the 3 primary things that they wanted to try to accomplish, right, with their tool sets. They felt that they had a shortfall in their tool sets to be able to do that, so they brought in a location intelligence platform, which, good news for us, it happened to be us. If it wasn't us, then I couldn't be talking about it today. So that's the good news for us. I get to talk about it today, okay? Just a little bit more, there's some repeat on this slide, but they launched it in June of 2010 in France, Belgium, Spain, Greece, Taiwan, and China. They're now rolling it out to some of the Eastern European countries. They're going to roll it out to more countries in the Asian market. And depending on how things go, they may expand the user groups inside of the known countries that they rolled out to in 2010. All right? So they've got a very large set of users across a number of different functional groups inside of their company, right? From real estate and finance to store operations to marketing to supply chain to merchandising. Those are the types of folks that are all using this kind of a platform. Okay, that's not to say that they've got integrated processes. It's just all the different functional groups that are using the platform. Okay, so Tim is going to give you a bit of a look at what this platform looks like.